Real magnetism is feeling very safe and secure with who you are, and also safe and secure to express authentically. Instead of a way that other people see you, it's a way that you want to feel internally about and within yourself. And even reframing, like, oh, I want to be magnetic so people see me as magnetic, instead of seeing it that way, see it as, I want to be magnetic because I want to feel my power and love and confidence within myself. It doesn't matter what other people see me as. That is what magnetism really is.
Welcome back to the Everygirl podcast. I just got off the interview with this guest that you guys are going to hear today. I know so many of you are craving what we are talking about in this episode today. Anytime we talk about manifestation or achieving your goals, it is always one of our most downloaded episodes. And the way that this guest approaches manifestation is definitely going to be a lot different than probably what you've heard before on manifestation TikTok or anything like that. It is so helpful and tangible and powerful. Like if you've ever rolled your eyes at like the just think positive advice, or you felt like vision boards weren't actually doing anything, this episode is truly going to transform how you think about creating the life that you want. I am joined by Jessica Gill, who is the Chief Content Officer of To Be Magnetic, the brand that has completely redefined manifestation for women everywhere. Instead of fluff or toxic productivity, their work is rooted in psychology and neuroscience, and it's helped hundreds of thousands of people rewire their subconscious to finally attract the love, money, confidence, health, and the opportunities that they've been chasing. In our conversation, Jessica explains why you might feel stuck in the same patterns, whether that's dating emotionally unavailable partners, never breaking through an income ceiling, or struggling with self-sabotage, and the exact steps that you can take today to shift your subconscious beliefs so your reality finally matches what you want and dream about. Jessica shares very practical tools that you can use this week to start embodying magnetism in everyday life to attract exactly what you want. You guys know I got all the tangible, practical tips and tools for you. So if you're ready to stop feeling stuck in the same cycles and start calling in the life that you know you're meant for, this episode is for you. Seriously, by the end of the episode, you will have the exact blueprint of what to do to change your life. Let's get into it with Jessica. I read the How to Manifest book and I was like, okay, our audience needs this. So I'm very excited for this conversation.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to connect. Yeah, I saw you guys had so many episodes of manifestation. I'm like, we got a lot to talk about.
Oh my gosh. And you have a very different perspective and
Yeah.
way to approach manifestation than we have talked about, which is why I was like, I have to get Jessica on and talk about this because it's good stuff. If you guys listening, like you're going to love this. So, Jessica, I really want to start with understanding a little bit about your background and how you got into manifestation.
I'm from Jersey originally, East Coaster.
Oh,
Very like practical, grounded. The spiritual woo-woo is like not what I grew up around at all by any means. But went to school for film and television production, worked in New York for a few years, came out freelanced in LA, and really built my career in film and television, casting, producing, writing, all the things. And I had this right around my Saturn return, that like breakdown moment of like, this isn't feeling like how I thought it would feel. I really wanted to tell stories that would change people's lives. And I'm like writing sketches for reality TV segments. And this just like doesn't quite, I'm not quite where I thought I'd be with all of this. And I just felt really confused and kind of lost at that time. And so I was on this spiritual quest, learning and reading everything on the topic and taking in a lot of different types of manifestation. And I found this incredible brand, To Be Magnetic by Lacy Phillips. She's the founder of the brand. And what actually caught me was not that she was teaching manifestation, but that she was teaching how our internal narrative, how our subconscious beliefs block us from connecting with the things that we want in life. And that set off so many green flags in my head of connecting the dots to childhood and therapy and these things that I felt like I couldn't break through this pattern with. I'm like, oh, maybe this is why I feel lost here. Maybe this is why I can't shake this pattern in relationships, all these things. So I became a super fan of the work and the content and started buying her workshops. And almost immediately, I was like, there is something different here. It really blends the psychology aspect with the spiritual and with the goal setting and all the things we love about manifestation, where it's like, let's dream big, call that thing into existence. It took away the, what's the word for it? It's almost like you don't really have a grounding word for how to surrender and how to let
Yes.
go and how to get into the vortex and be in a good high vibe. And it was like, what do you mean my vibration has to be good? Like, what do you mean, like, get into the vortex? Does that mean I have to just be happy and positive all the time? That doesn't feel true. That doesn't feel authentic. And Lacy's work was really like, no, none of that actually really matters. And how to do all of those things is to sit with the hard feelings, to understand the narrative that you're projecting out onto the world from a subconscious level and move through there. And so I became obsessed with the brand. I was like, I want to work for a brand that's doing something like that. So I actually use the manifestation method to manifest my next job, which wound up being at To Be Magnetic.
No way. Okay, as you must. If you want a job there, you have to use the manifestation method to
Yeah.
get it.
Of course. It's so funny. Almost every single person that works for us has manifested. They're like, I was manifesting this exact dynamic and scenario. And we're like, we were manifesting an
Stop.
exact person like you for the role. So, but I knew, knowing the TBM work, one of the things we talk about is not to manifest like a one of a kind thing. So, not to say, I'm going to work at TBM and only TBM, to say, I want to work at a company that gives me what things. For me, that was telling stories that were going to change people's lives. For me, that was the ability to work remote and have more autonomy over my schedule, to be able to put my hands in a couple different buckets and not have like a big corporate ladder to go through to get things done. So that was on my list. And I knew TBM was a brand I liked, but I also had other brands that I saw as what we call expanders. They're showing you what's possible out there, they're expanding what narratives and roads you can go down. But so I had that on my list, and lo and behold, they needed someone to help run their podcast. I started there 6 years ago, and now I'm their chief content officer, designing all of their content, helping Lacy write the book, recording the audio book, hosting the podcast, all the things.
It is so interesting how you started out, like you said, being a little bit more skeptical of things like
Mhm,
this, and now
mhm,
your entire career is built around it. So I'm
mhm,
curious, after you've dedicated your career to manifestation, to this topic the past 6 years, what has
mhm.
surprised you and challenged you the most about manifestation in general?
Mm. I would say challenged is there's so much like misconception on how it works and how surface level it can be. And especially, talking to friends and family back home, I was hesitant to even say like it's a manifestation company because I know the judgments that's going to come with it. They're like, okay, that's not real, or that's silly, or that's woo woo, or whatever it is. And then there's also like spiritual TikTok where they're like, okay, you just have to do this. And it's this like cool ritual and it sounds fun. But as someone who had tried so many of those things, I was like, this isn't the thing that's actually creating change within someone. And what TBM really teaches is that you are born wholly worthy, authentic. And as you grow older, especially from 0 to 7, you're like a sponge. You're learning how the world works. You're picking up every modeling of what you have to do to fit in, to be loved. And a lot of that creates limiting beliefs and blocks like, oh, I have to do this to be loved, or I have to reject this aspect because kids bully this, or, ooh, I saw someone else bullied for this, so I'm not going to do that. And so you start to put basically masks on and limiters on yourself. And when you go to manifest or achieve your goals or whatever you want to do in the real world as you're an adult, those beliefs are still running the show. It's almost like all those inner child parts are coming to the forefront, self-sabotaging you in like little to big ways, in ways that you're maybe not going for the dreams you want and staying in the safe job that your family would have approved of. So watching that unfold and noticing how much it really is a psychological and a neuroscience exercise as much as a spiritual one really surprised me. And then seeing that work time and time again with tens and hundreds of thousands of members has been crazy.
Yeah, it's so true. Like I have said this before, that I really, after being really interested in manifestation myself and reading all the books, including yours, I was like, I've really come to understand that manifestation is really just self esteem. Like, that's so much of what it boils down to is just what do you think of yourself and what you're capable of. And I think that's what is maybe challenging for a lot of people because, like you said, manifestation talk, we see these practices that are like, write down your desires 5 times on a notebook and put it in your shoe or put it in a glass of water or make a vision board. There's all of these practices out there that are so fun of like, let me dream about the life that I want. That's amazing. But then there's all of this ingrained belief that's telling
Mhm.
us we can't have that or we don't deserve that. And if we don't get rid of that, we stand no chance to get what we want. And I think that's the part that is obviously the hardest for people for so many reasons. It's hard to get rid of that ingrained belief that you were bullied when you were 6 years old and that stayed with you all of these years. And I think one reason it's so hard for people is that it's so subconscious and deeply
Mhm.
ingrained. What examples have you seen as you've been doing this work of some beliefs that people may not even be aware of, but is clearly blocking their potential?
Yeah, I mean, money's a great one to start with because it's everybody wants more money, most likely. And a lot of people can say that they consciously want it. Of course, I want it. I dream about it. It's on my vision board. I think, like, what do you mean I don't want it? But we kind of look at it through the lens of three aspects with the TBM work: how expanded you are, how unblocked you are, which is the limiting beliefs, and how much aligned action you're taking. And those three things really need to be in motion because they all really dictate what's happening in your subconscious. So, with money, for example, if you really want money and you've been trying to do all the things and it's just not coming to you have to look back. Okay, what was the programming that you picked up around money? How did your parents operate around money? Did they have a lack mindset or did they have an abundant mindset? Did they see money as something that was bad or only for greedy people or evil people or bad people? What were the narratives that you as a little kid just observed and said, okay, that's what I'm learning about this? So even though we all know that we need money, if you are a child and you need your parents for survival and you can tell that your parents are judging the people in your community for having more money, subconsciously, there is a part of you that says, you can have money, but don't have too much money because if you do, then your parents aren't going to love you. Now, obviously, as an adult, you're like, that's so silly. Why would I believe that? But that is actually the aspect of you that's running the show. So it's about finding examples of people that have money that are doing great things, that are doing things that you really admire, that you see them as admirable, and that maybe even your parents might see them as admirable. Then it's unblocking that limiting belief. And when it comes to unblocking, that's really when we go into the subconscious and we want to overwrite and recontextualize any memories or associations we have with that belief system. So, in the subconscious, especially, we call them deep imaginings, but they're self hypnosis audios that drop you into the theta state and allow your subconscious to come forward. And in that state, it's crazy. Like, you'll have memories that you consciously could not conjure up, but it will just come forward and you're like, oh my God, I totally forgot my mom said that. And instead of, okay, let's pretend it didn't happen, you say, okay, it happened. How can I take another assumption away from that? So, in that scenario, let's say you remember that your parents did judge people with money. Instead of saying, like, in order to be loved from my parents, I can't have too much money because they'll judge me too. Instead, your adult brain can now say, oh, there's nuance. My parents judged them for money because they felt insecure that they didn't have enough. And so they judged them out of projection. But if I had money, my parents would love me and be proud of me regardless. So it actually is safe to have money. So many times when we want something consciously, but subconsciously it's like not coming in, that there's a blocker there, we most likely do not feel safe to have it. And it could be not feeling safe because we feel like we'll get pushed out from family, not safe because we'll get bullied, because, whatever the story is, but usually we just don't feel safe with whatever that next thing is. And so, how can we work with both the memories and also the body somatically to say, oh, okay, as I start getting closer and expanding into having more money, how can I regulate? How can I remind my body, top down and body up approach, that I'm safe here. I can have this. And then that final piece is aligned action. And that's where it's like, okay, if you look at all of the ways that you are taking steps to make more money, Are you reaching out to a bunch of people, but then not answering their email for like 2 weeks? Are there little self-sabotage things where that limiting belief is actually coming up in your behaviors? Or are you sending something really frantically and from an energy of desperation of, oh, please, hire me for this and blah, blah, versus like, I'm going to send this out because I'm excited and I believe in what I have to offer and I know I can connect with someone. That's going to land totally differently than had you sent it from that totally desperate place. So money is a challenging one because there are so many different patterns and it's so connected with so many things, but it's one that can really show you the difference between what you consciously want and what you subconsciously are projecting out.
That is such a powerful way to explain it. And it's really fascinating to think about this concept of safety being a
Mhm.
huge reason, especially because it can talk about the difference between conscious and subconscious. It's like our brain can consciously think having more money would be safer, having a loving relationship would be safer. But there's something within us that is, for whatever reason, feeling like, no, that's not safe. One example that I've been working through a lot and reading the books helped me so much. I was doing all the journaling exercises. It's like the difference of wanting, which is where I think people misunderstand manifestation of they're like, I want this. I can want all day that I can grow this podcast and make this podcast even bigger. But I've realized I have this ingrained belief that the more eyes on me, the more people there might be that don't like me. And that's
Mhm.
terrifying. And that's like I don't feel safe being exposed in that way. And so
Mhm.
I just like, no, that's what's holding me back. To give our listeners like an example of how this shows up in your life, I think another really common one that a lot of people struggle with is they can want a happy, healthy relationship all day long, but then they find themselves in these patterns where they're choosing assholes or unavailable people.
Mhm.
And I'm curious if you could talk about, like, in specific examples, whether it's, you're stuck in a pattern with relationships, even though you really want a happy, healthy relationship, or whether it is in career, money. Why is that happening? How can people identify what those beliefs are if they don't feel super obvious? Those feelings of unsafety are so ingrained, like so deep within them. So, like, why is that happening? And then how can they start identifying what those patterns are to be able to heal from them?
Yeah. Okay. So two things for why is that happening. So from 0 to honestly 26, but really the first 14 years, your brain's a sponge. It's absorbing the entire world. It's learning how to fit in. And especially when you're an infant, when you literally depend on your parents for food, shelter, safety, all of the things, like you will die if you don't get that from them. There is this attachment that forms where you look to them as gospel, whoever your parents are, right? You are constantly scanning the environment and learning, what do I need to do to be fed? What do I need to be do to be loved, to be held, to be appreciated, to get my needs met? And so that is where some of those limiting beliefs might start to set in. And so your parents also are modeling to you what love looks like, what relationship to money looks like, what career looks like, and you want to be like them, you want to be connected to them, so you want to stay within that realm. That's one piece of it. The other piece is that what you modeled, saw, imprinted from those ages, whatever is familiar is going to feel safer than something that is unfamiliar and unknown. So if you are used to seeing relational dynamics where the guy is emotionally unavailable, they can't attune, they are checked out, you've seen this pattern again and again and again, that actually feels safer and more familiar because you don't know what it's like to actually feel safe with another person. So on a subconscious level, you're attracting back in those dynamics because some part of you still feels safer because it's almost like I feel safer with the challenge I know than the challenge I don't know.
Wow.
And there's another sort of spiritual perspective to this, which is that those challenging dynamics will continue to come back in so you can get a corrective experience. So, a lot of times, if we didn't get our needs met, let's say our parents, let's say your father was emotionally shut down, working all the time, not really able to like check in with your world, attuned to you, not able to meet you on an emotional level at all. No blame to him. Like he had his own traumas, but that was really challenging and hard for you. And now you go out in a dating scenario and you're meeting people similar. there is an impulse to want to correct that experience. So you call someone in similarly and you're like, hey, you're just like my dad in this regard or this dynamic. Can you meet my needs? Can you meet my needs? Can you meet my needs? And until you learn to choose differently, you're never going to find the person that's going to meet your needs. But it comes from an earnest, loving, wanting to get their needs met, but they're just going in the wrong direction because they keep going to someone who can never actually meet them. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because, oh, well, look, all these guys can't meet my needs, but they keep choosing them subconsciously. And then to the second part of your question, looking at how do they discover what they have? I would say think about in a dream scenario what you truly want from a relationship, a job, any of that, and what is present right now. And then when you look at what's present right now, I would ask yourself, what must I be believing about myself in order for this dynamic to be presenting? So
Mm.
if you're, let's say, calling in all these unavailable, unemotional, and this is not to put blame, this is not like you deserve any of that. That's not the case at all. It's just a subconscious belief that is not true. So what must part of you be believing about this dynamic for this to be unfolding? And then the beauty is you get to say, oh, that's how I need to show up for myself. That's how I need to heal myself. That's how I need to celebrate and meet my own need. So I actually don't need it from this person or this job or this success or any of it. I can give it to myself. And then when you do that, then the manifestation that you actually want can come through.
And just a note on like the blame piece of it, like I like to think of manifestation is it might feel to some people a little tough lovey of,
Mhm.
you're attracting these certain kind of partners, you need to change. But it really is less about blame and more about empowerment. I find it so incredibly empowering that rather than feeling like I'm the victim of my own life because I haven't gotten any of the jobs I've applied for, or I'm, date all these assholes or whatever it is, like there's something that I can do differently to change the outcome of my life. I find that so incredibly empowering rather than blaming. And I think that's such an important thing to stress to people because I'm sure there are some people that hear this and it's like, well, it's not about me. It's about all these assholes that I dated. Yes, for sure. But isn't it so much more empowering to think of what can I do differently to have a different reality and I get to control my own life? I have raved about OSEA's Undaria algae body oil for months now, and I feel so cool because Allure named the body oil in their Best of Beauty 2025 awards. So just remember that. I know what I'm talking about. And I am not shocked at all that Allure magazine agrees with me because this body oil really is worth the hype. This is not your average body oil. It's rich but never greasy. It soaks in fast, leaves your skin ridiculously soft, and gives you that glow that makes you feel just a little bit more confident. This time of year, when I have said goodbye to my fake tanner, this body oil adds a glow to my skin and gives me this gorgeous, even complexion. So I feel great about my skin even without a tan. It's actually clinically proven to improve skin elasticity and hydration. That means firmer, smoother skin that just feels better to live in. My fiance always comments on how smooth my skin feels when I use this body oil. And OSEA checks every box: clean, vegan, cruelty free, and climate label certified. Get healthy, glowing skin for fall with clean, vegan skin and body care from OSEA. Get 10% off your first order site wide with code TheEverygirl at OSEAMalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $50. Head to OSEAMalibu.com and use code TheEverygirl for 10% off. How do we know that some of our subconscious beliefs are not in line with what we consciously want? Like, is it just because manifestation is feeling really hard and like we can be trying to manifest and not getting it? And that's how we know that our subconscious beliefs are so disconnected?
If you don't have what you want, there's a disconnect. So whether
Mm.
that's you don't have the expansion, whether that's you have the limiting beliefs in there, or a lot of people are afraid to take action and they'll kind of put off the action or they'll procrastinate the action. But one of those three things is missing if you don't, because you would have it already if it was that case. So one of those three is off. I would say that's probably the biggest way to kind of clock it. The only nuance kind of caveat to that is, especially when manifesting a partner, it's two people's manifestation process. It's not just one person gets served a physical item or a job or the favorite pair of jeans. They're on their own healing journey and timeline, and you're on your own healing journey and timeline. And so, allowing space and grace for you to learn the lessons as they feel good to you. I also want to note here, too, like, if you're like, dang, okay, if I don't have what I want, like it's because of me, it's like, well, also, part of the joy of life is learning these lessons, is getting to move and heal through them and work through them. So just know, even bringing the littlest amount of awareness to it, you're already so far ahead of the curve. So many people don't even look at these patterns, don't even consider them, don't even think about them. So just the fact that you're even aware of any patterns you have going on is already a huge win. And know that you're going to have as much time as you need to work through, to heal the pattern, to navigate it in your own time. And you can still manifest other things in between then. It's not like, oh, if you're blocked in this one area, nothing else good will happen to you. You can be manifesting in your career while you're still waiting to manifest your partner. So multiple things can be happening simultaneously.
So if someone identifies these subconscious beliefs, they realize that they have this limiting belief within them that they didn't even know existed. How do we even begin to let go of that, especially knowing that it's something that was so deep within us?
We have a whole unblocking process in the How to Manifest book. And then also in our membership, we walk them through it as well, where you're really bringing awareness to this. You're identifying what the block is. You're identifying all the places in your life right now where you're getting, we call them tested and triggered. This is where you're matching with people online for dates, and oh no, it's the same emotionally unavailable person. That's a test. Or a trigger might be something that causes like a big emotional reaction in you. Maybe you're someone who's trying to date someone that's very communicative, and someone doesn't text back for like weeks on end. That could create a really big trigger response. So when you look at those places and spaces, where am I getting tested? Where am I being triggered? You'll start to put together patterns. You're like, oh, okay, well, this happened, this happened, this happened. There's this belief here. And then through the unblocking process, a lot of that happens in the hypnosises, in the deep imaginings. We have one in the book called the limiting beliefs ones, which is perfect for this, but we have over 70 in our membership, where you're really bringing up certain scenarios or memories or even sensations in the body if you don't have a specific memory, and bringing up that sensation, feeling through our emotions on it. Sometimes it's the first time we've ever actually been able to process like how we actually felt about those challenging moments. If a kid bullied you, you might have just stuffed it down and not thought about it for years and years and years. And now you can actually have this moment with your inner child where you're in the moment with them and saying like, oh my gosh, that was so hard. I'm so sorry you went through that. And you can really show up for yourself in those DIs. And we kind of guide you with some prompts of like how to do that and how to talk to your inner child and how to really just champion them and recontextualize the situation. And when you can do that on the subconscious level, it super speeds and helps to overwrite that neural pathway. So before, if you think of like stimulus and response, before you'd see an emotionally unavailable partner present and you might be somewhat drawn to them. But now you have awareness. Now you've been on blocking any memories of the pain it was to not have your dad check in with you. And now you can say, okay, I see this test. I'm going to say no. Or I'm going to say I'm going to have to pass. And so slowly but surely your behaviors will start to change. And then what opportunities present will then start to change. And that's when you'll really know, is when your external world literally looks different. And you're like, how did I get here? And it's like, oh, that limiting belief has been overwritten.
Yeah, that you like really, there's no questioning whether or not you have released that limiting belief. It's obvious if you released it. And if you're unsure, you probably haven't fully released it yet, which
Mhm.
is honestly so cool to get that feedback from the universe, from your reality, whatever you want to call it. You mentioned triggers. Can you explain a little bit more about what triggers are? And I'm curious, especially, how do we know the difference between a trigger or a test and
Mhm.
something that is what we're manifesting in just a different package?
Okay. So tests and triggers, you can kind of see them as the universe questioning if you're going to settle for the same things you've been settling for before. So every time they pop up, they're opportunities to either repeat the same behavior you've been repeating or to say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to respond from this in this way. They can really look like two different forms. Opportunity tests, which is like, potential job opportunities or dating opportunities. They're physical things that you get a choice between those things, right? Or a new friendship that presents something like that. A trigger is really a deeply emotional response to something. So, let's say you get a message online from someone that feels kind of like a hater, nasty message, and it spirals you out, and you're thinking about it nonstop, and you're like, oh my gosh, that would be considered a trigger. It hit on a wound that really activated a big emotional response within you. And despite how kind of scary or fearful some of them sound, these are all good things because it means that the universe is saying, hey, we know that you're asking for this, but are you ready to face the challenges that come with this? And are you ready to respond to this in a new opportunity? So, how you were saying before, part of growing a brand and growing a podcast is visibility. And visibility can look scary, especially in the culture we're in, like societal programming and seeing how many people get taken down and hated and canceled and all of that. It can be like, well, that's really scary. I'm kind of just safer here. So a test for you or a triggered opportunity is if someone said something not nice online. And you have two options in that case. You can either go back down the rabbit hole you typically do. Let's say in this case of the example, you shut down, you don't post for a couple days, you're kind of like spiraling, you're second guessing yourself. And then next time you record, you're like a little bit in your head and you're like, okay, what do they want to hear from me? I want to make sure not to say the wrong thing. And then you disconnect from your authenticity. And the other option is to sit down, to feel your feelings, to process, to say that I'm really upset. What did this touch on for me? A lot of times when our triggers are like big emotions, in the therapeutic world, they say if it's hysterical, it's historical. So if it's a big emotional reaction, there is probably another story down there that also reminds you of this case where you felt super unsafe, where it wasn't cool to be yourself or safe to be yourself. Let's try to look at that. Notice how it's a different package, but it's the same lesson of, am I going to abandon my authentic self here? Am I going to abandon my truth? Am I going to abandon my dream to fit in or to be liked? If you can then see that opportunity and say, okay, instead of spiraling and playing small and getting in my head, I'm going to feel everything. I'm going to cry. I'm going to process it all. I'm going to show up for my inner child in the deep imaginings in that theta state. And then I'm going to go back to being my authentic self. I'm going to use my voice. Maybe I'll share more today. But like, how can your actions then correct that after you've already attuned to the wound?
So every time we feel a big emotional reaction to something, then is how we kind of move through those is just checking in with what is this trying to teach me or test me?
100%.
Okay. So
Yeah.
then when we see tests, for example, like if someone is trying to manifest a
Mm.
partner or they're manifesting a certain job opportunity, and if a partner or job opportunity comes along that looks pretty good, but just isn't that
The whole
exact
thing.
thing, isn't the whole thing, how do you
Yeah.
know if that's a test or just what you're trying to manifest, but just doesn't look exactly like you were putting into words, if that makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. We get this question all the time. Okay, so a couple things. Reference your manifestation list. So we kick off the entire process with writing a list that's based off of your authentic desires, not ego desires, not the desires of your mom, not the desires to be cool, but like your true authentic desires. So when you have an opportunity present, first reference that list. Like, does it check all the boxes? And if it's missing, let's say a handful or it's missing one item, then you can kind of go back and say, all right, well, is this item a non negotiable? Meaning, is this item in there because it truly is going to give me what I want in this moment? It truly is going to help me feel good in this job. And if I settle on this, will I be repeating a pattern where I have settled for this in the past? So a good example of this is with the job, right? If someone is like, I want to work remote and I want to make 10K a month and I want a boss that's not toxic and doesn't scream at me and I want to do something creative. Let's say that's their list. And it has everything except for a couple of the coworkers told you that the boss tends to get a little intense, but it's nothing you can't handle. It's like super, it's fine. Like she's a little intense, but you'll be okay. Immediately, especially if you have settled for that in the past or you've had that experience and you're trying to expand out of it, immediately I would say that's a red flag. And that I would say no to, because it is repeating that toxic dynamic that you're trying to break. Now, let's say it doesn't have the 10K salary, but it has everything else. The boss is great, not toxic at all. Like everything else it checks off, but the 10K salary. Then I would say, like, okay, is this 10K salary something that I really feel in my worth about? I really feel like I made this at my last job. I have expansion around it. I see to believe that I can make it this way. And I really need this minimum in order to live and pay my bills. It would be settling to take it. But if you're like, you know what? I actually have another way I could make up the 10K for my bills. And I've never made 10K before. I've only made 5K. So it does feel like a big jump. I can take this and I'll figure out a different way to make up the 10K. So that would be more like a bridge manifestation where it's not 100% everything on your list, but it's checking all the right things and it's helping correct a pattern from the past that you don't want to settle for anymore. Anytime you're settling for those old toxic patterns, that's a big red flag that it's a test and to say no.
So it's really just about knowing what the non-negotiables are and making sure
Mhm.
you have those. Like if someone's looking for their apartment hunting or they're,
Mhm.
wanting to buy a home and they have on their list exactly what they want, it looks like this, it has this kind of kitchen, it has 2 bedrooms, 3 baths, it's this much money, whatever it is. And then if something comes up that has most of those things but not a lot, I think the hard part is figuring out what's I can't have too unrealistic expectations and I should just accept this pretty good deal versus this is a test that I'm supposed to say no to in order to wait for the thing that's actually meant for me. I guess like
Tripped
that's
up.
the hard part. Yeah, for people to understand the difference between tests versus something
The
they're
full thing.
manifesting, the full thing. But it really sounds like it's coming down to your non-negotiables. If the house has all your non-negotiables, but it's missing this one part that's like would be nice, but it's not necessarily, then that is something worth saying yes to.
100%. And I think also when the opportunity presents, you can also ask yourself, like, is any of this for ego? Or is this all because I authentically feel like it will bring me joy? And so sometimes we have things in our home that we think make us cool or make us like, oh, this will be good for my Instagram or whatever to show other people. It's really like a thing we want to prove that we're cool enough, good enough, fancy enough, whatever. But if it comes from I don't care if anyone saw that I had this in my home, but this brings me so much joy. That's the stuff you don't want to compromise on. And the other thing is you can also ask for it. We had a member write in who was manifesting a home and she had a bathtub on it because she loves the water. She just like loves being immersed. It just gives her so much grounding peace. It had everything and then some in this apartment, but no bathtub. And she's like, I gotta say no. And she told the landlord, she's like, I'm sorry. It's perfect in so many ways. We call these shiny carrot tests. So they're almost it. They're so perfect. But she knows this work and she's very expanded. She's like, I'm not gonna settle. I'm going to say no. And he was like, you know what? I was actually thinking of putting in a tub. We're going to put in a clawfoot tub. If we do that, will you move in? And then she was like, oh my God. And it
Stop.
was the full list. So, in an ideal world, yes, you wouldn't settle until you had everything of your non negotiables on your list, but make sure they're non negotiables and not from ego. And if you settle and take the thing that's not everything on your list, it's just what we call a bridge manifestation, meaning it's not your full picture, but it's getting you closer. It's helping expand you to see to believe what you want is closer than you think. And then next time you manifest an apartment, hold out for that full list.
I want to talk a little bit more about that ego desire. I think this is a really important point because so many things that we want wouldn't actually make us happy because, for example, we see other people on social media and everyone's so impressed that they have these kind of designer clothes and whatever, not to negate because some people really are manifesting having beautiful designer clothes and that would actually make them happy. So it's not about, the certain things or materialism. It's just like, I think we see certain stuff. For like another example of this is you are manifesting a certain kind of partner because you've learned that's what would impress other people is if they looked
Mhm.
this way or acted this way, or you're manifesting a job that would make you look super successful to other people instead of what would actually make you happy. So I think this is a huge one that I have found more often than not. I would say most of us, whether we realize or not, are wanting or trying to manifest at least some ego center desires. So, can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about what this really looks like and how we know an ego center desire versus a genuine desire?
Yeah. So, a couple of big ways. Once you get the manifestation, you won't really feel much of anything. You'll feel like a quick boost of excitement and then it dwindles out and the true happiness like hasn't actually shifted. But how we kind of approach it at TBM is before you even write your manifestation list, we have you do what we call your authentic code. And it's a big questionnaire where we ask you tons of questions to really understand your subconscious wants and desires without you even realizing. For example, at home right now, you guys can check your saved folder on Instagram or Pinterest. What are the last five main categories that you've pinned or saved in? What were they? What were they images, pictures of that you just felt like, oh, I love this. I want to save this. They gave you that excitement. That will start to clue you into like, oh, wow, I'm actually really into this. I never realized that before. Or like, this is so important to me. I had no idea. So we do this whole inventory. We also have a deep imagining where you connect with your authentic inner child and think about all the stages from toddler to high school to now. What things did you like to do? What games did you like to play? How did you like to interact? What were the TV shows? And you can start to kind of see a through line and through so many of them, especially at this season in life. Your authentic code could change over the years, but you'll usually have similar patterns coming up and up again, and we distill them down into four main categories. So, four words, and they each could represent different things. For example, one of mine is home. And I love designing my home. I love like honoring and spending money on my home. I love home content online. I like Zillow. Anything home just feels so nourishing, lights up my soul, brings me so much peace and happiness. So, figure out what those four things are that are so important to you that really anchor in who you are. They make you happy, they bring you joy. And when you're manifesting, reference those pillars. Do these manifestations help me connect with these pillars of my authenticity? Do they help me connect to my soul's real desires underneath it all? That's one way you can kind of cross reference and check. And then the other piece is any part of you wanting that thing to prove to someone else who you are and how important you are, or how good you are, or how artsy or cool, or fill it in with any descriptor there. If that is the case, is there an authentic part of you that also wants it? Because that can happen too. You can want something for approval from others, but you could also authentically want it. And so that's where the unblocking comes into play, where it's like, let's detach from needing other people to approve of our lifestyle. Because whenever we put someone else's approval above us, or we put something or someone on a pedestal, we're basically saying, like, you're up here, I'm down here. And the truth is, we're all just on different journeys and different levels. And so it's not about comparing each other. Everyone has their own challenges and hardships, and having one physical item is not going to make you better than others, even though that's what society conditions us to believe. So the more that we can take that back, it's taking our power back and saying, like, actually, that's not so cool to me, but I actually really like this instead. And that's where you get to pull back that inherent worthy version that you were originally born as.
At the end of the day, it's like manifestation for what? Like, okay,
Mhm.
you're going to get this new job, you're going to be in this relationship, you're going to get these new things, you're going to make this more money. For what? The goal is just to make you happy. And if the things you're manifesting are not actually going to deeply make you happy, what is the point?
I think too, we're kind of, and I'm curious if you're feeling into this too. We're kind of coming up at a time where the stuff that isn't really authentic and isn't really in integrity just is starting to feel ickier and ickier. Like we can
Yeah.
spot it on other people, we feel it about the things with ourselves. Like the bullshit meter has kind of gone up a lot where we're sensing like I can tell that person's faking or they don't really want that or they're trying to fit in. The energy has shifted. And so it really is a call to figure out like you have this one body, this one lifetime that we're in right now. How can you create the reality that you really want to experience? And so much of it goes back to the sensation and the feeling. When you're crafting the manifestation list, we always say to write next to the whatever you have written down how you want it to make you feel. If this came through, how would that feel? Like envision experiencing that. That is your norm. That's your day to day. Like, how is that enhancing your life? How is that bringing joy to your life? Is it bringing you more energy? Is it bringing you more peace? What are the real things that you're actually calling in when you're calling in these physical items?
That's the piece I think so many people forget is how it's gonna make them feel. If it's going
Hmm.
to light you up and make you feel so happy and fulfilled and at peace and free and all these things that you're trying to manifest, like, that is the authentic desire that is worth manifesting.
100%. And that's the thing that's going to come through. And also, that energy exudes out. Like when people manifest from that place, it actually doesn't matter what the thing is. It's the fact that they had this, like, wow, I healed this part of my inner child, or I healed this limiting belief. And then this thing came through and it feels like magic. And now I feel so excited. That energy is palpable. That's magnetism,
Yeah.
being in that energy, and you want to be around friends who are in that energy that helps expand other people to be like, wow, I want my version of that. How can I feel like that? So, in one person manifesting their dreams, you're also showing other people that they can do that too.
That's so interesting that you just defined magnetism that way. Working for a company that's called How to Be Magnetic, I was gonna ask you, what does it actually mean to be magnetic, and how do we know that we're actually embodying magnetism versus just performing confidence or trying to fake it till we make it? It sounds like the answer is authenticity.
100%. Real magnetism is feeling very safe and secure with who you are, and also safe and secure to express authentically, to
Mm.
interact authentically, to not put a mask on in this room versus this space. And it's hard. And it's also a state that, like, you might not feel safe doing all the time. Like you might be really magnetic with this group of friends, but around your coworkers, you might be a little bit more reserved or a different persona comes up. And that's totally fine too. I think seeing magnetism as instead of a way that other people see you, it's a way that you want to feel internally about and within yourself. And even reframing, like, oh, I want to be magnetic so people see me as magnetic. Instead of seeing it that way, see it as I want to be magnetic because I want to feel my power and love and confidence within myself. It doesn't matter what other people see me as. That is what magnetism really is.
It's about how you experience life, not how other people are experiencing you.
Yes.
Which, as we've been saying, is an increasingly hard thing. The more and more social media is a part of our lives, the more and more we realize how judgmental and cruel people can be. So, whether your job is on social media or even it's just like it's the mentality that it's getting to you, if you realize how scary people can be and how mean and judgmental. And so that impacts you at work, with friends, in dating. So, what are some ways that we can let go of that worry of judgment, the fear of being seen as we
Mhm.
authentically are so that we can step into that magnetism?
I think it really starts first and foremost with creating safety and peace and confidence within. So, within ourselves, even within our body, we have a whole section in our deep imagining library called the calming DIs. And it's really about that somatic practice of, they call it the physiological sigh. But when you breathe in once through your nose and then take a second sniff and then breathe out a sigh, you're essentially telling your body you are safe. When you do a deep, like, exhale, you are telling your body you're safe because you can't be running from a predator going, like, you're not getting chased by a lion with a big exhale. You exhale when you like crash on the couch at the end of a long day. You exhale when you land in the plane ready for vacation. Like it's when you're about to just relax and be at peace. So, how can you tell your body, okay, this may be happening online, or I may have received this piece of feedback, or this nasty comment, or the horrible things are going on in the world? But let me tune out of that for a second. Let me put that down and remind myself that I can find a pocket of safety and a pocket of peace within my body. How can I let my body know that in this moment I am safe? Am I sitting on the ground? Five senses check in. What do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? Am I physically safe? And if you are, that is how you start to remind yourself that you are safe in the moment. And then when you go out into the world and you have these experiences with these really hard, real challenging things, you figure out how you can tolerate it and titrate between the two, reminding yourself of that safety, especially with being seen. Having that internal, it's almost like a muscle, muscle with self of like, I'm good. I've got me. I feel resourced. And some of that might also be having I think I saw this on the Transform podcast with Sammy Clark and Sammy Spalter, but they talked about having like your front row friends, like the friends that like cheerlead you. They're there for you no matter what. They have your back. And thinking about who is your inner circle that no matter what happens externally, you can go to them and they're your support system. It might be your therapist, it might be your dog, but like who are those people that you can turn to that will let you feel safe and be yourself? When you have places and spaces you can do that, then going out and being seen feels less scary and the stakes are less high because you're like, well, if I feel safe internally and I know I have my people that have my back no matter what, it doesn't really matter what this person thinks of me. Like, it's actually none of my business. I'm doing my passion. I'm sharing from my heart. I'm sharing my joy. And that's all I can do, and the rest
Mm.
is not my business.
It's such a fascinating reframe to look at everything that you want in your life as a matter of training yourself to feel safe
Mhm.
receiving it and experiencing it. So, would this also look like, let's say you really want to be in a relationship, but you realize that you have all these limiting beliefs about, I'm not good enough or I'm not lovable. And so, it's really when you're going on a date, training your body to be like, you're safe. It's okay. Or like it's applying it in that way in those tangible moments. Or like if you're wanting to manifest a promotion or a leadership position, training yourself to feel safe when you're presenting and meeting so that you become more and more safe in that setting where you are in leadership. Like that's how it would look on a tangible basis.
100%. And then also with the I'm not good enough, that spiral or that loop, how can you show your body something different? So in your alone time, I'm not good enough might mean I'm leaving my house a mess. I don't deserve to have a clean space. I'm not going to buy myself my favorite treat on the weekend. What are the small ways that you're communicating you're not good enough by following up with action? Are there other actions that can communicate to yourself that you are good enough? Can you get yourself your favorite dinner on a random Tuesday night? It may be part of being good enough. For me, this is a habit that I shifted recently was putting my phone outside of the bedroom so I didn't go into someone else's world on social media or on Slack first thing in the morning. I'm like, no, I'm good enough to have peace first thing in the morning before I click into my digital world. I'm good enough to not have to look at, like, I deserve calm and peace before bed without looking at TikTok. What are those like micro habits that you don't even think are communicating anything about self-worth? But actually, if you truly loved yourself and showed up for yourself and believed that you deserve the best, would you be treating yourself that way? And how can you start to kind of reframe some of those habits too?
I love looking at that from a place of self-esteem because it's so true of like what are the little ways you're communicating with yourself, how little you deserve or where you're limiting yourself. But also it's, when we talk about becoming your best self, like the version of yourself that has the life that you want, it's like there is again, whether it's conscious or subconscious, maybe a little part of you that's like, yeah, I know that I'm scrolling on my phone and my best self who is the boss of the company isn't spending their time scrolling on their phone. So like that little habit is communicating probably so much. And so there's so many tangible action steps that has nothing to do with actually going out and applying for the job, even though that's important. But it's so
Mhm.
many things we can be doing that's going to change our reality just based on what those little habits are or are not communicating to us about what we deserve and are ready for.
100%. And you brought up such a good point too, that oftentimes with our manifestations, yes, they're about the job and you'll have tests and experiences directly related to it. But so much of connecting with our manifestations is our self worth in alignment with what we're calling it. And it is our subconscious self-worth in alignment with what we're calling in. Self-worth doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not just self-worth of this over here. So if you are working on your self-worth in how your habits are with your phone and how you feed yourself and how you speak to yourself in your mind, that's another huge one. Everybody has an inner critic. Do we let our inner critic run wild and like destroy us in our mind? Or do we have a compassionate, loving parent that interjects in our mind and says, hey, I see you want to go at me right now. Let's take a breather. How do you feel? Like, I love journaling with parts work and internal family systems, the therapeutic model from Richard Schwartz, where I can just say, like, okay, there's a part of me that like really wants to pick myself apart right now. There's another part of me that's compassionate to that and like can see, like, okay, I see why I'm doing that. Let's just give them space, but let's not blend with them. Let's not let them take the driver's seat and think that it's okay to destroy ourselves or be so mean to ourselves. We have an exercise in our authenticity challenge where you kind of set boundaries with your inner critic, where if you're having a hard time and that inner critic is so loud, you're like, all right, you get 1 minute and you can say whatever you want to say. And after that, you're done. You know, what are the
I love
limitations?
that.
Because you would never let someone bully your child like that. You never let a friend speak to another friend like that. So, why do we allow ourselves to speak to ourselves like that, even if it's in our own mind?
It's so true, and, like, we are wondering, "Why am I not making more money? Why am I not getting the job I want? Why aren't I finding the relationship?" And here we are having this voice in our head that's like, "You're such a fucking loser," and we're
Mm-hmm.
wondering why we're not getting the things we're wanting. Like, of course, because we have this loop that we're letting tell us that we don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The thing is, almost everyone has it. It's just about how you relate to it differently and how you have a bit more compassion for it and also kind of see it as a protective part. Like the part of us that's saying you're a fucking loser, you know, all these things is also trying to like give us a kick in the ass to like move things along. And it's like, hey, we're not where we want to be. Like, what are you doing? Wake up. And so instead of seeing it as fact that we're actually a loser, maybe see it as, oh, this part of me loves me so much that it doesn't want me to not have what I want. So instead of like actually listening to the words, let me just realize that it's a part of me that's trying to love me, even though they're a little misguided. And we can be compassionate here.
Yeah, and that's probably going to change what the voice is saying over time
Mhm.
because if you start realizing that that voice is coming from a place of it's out of love that it just wants me to have everything I want. It wants me to get off the couch and go work out because I've been wanting to do that. Instead of hearing like, or even having that voice say, you're a fucking loser, it's going to
Mm.
start saying, you deserve to go move. You deserve
Yes.
to get off the couch and you deserve to live a life that makes you feel energized and good. And your body deserves to move. Like the voice shifts when we do see it differently. So I think that's such a powerful reframe to not only change our experience with the voice, but the voice itself. I feel
Oh,
like we're getting a little like meta with like the voice within, but
the
it's so
voice. Yeah.
true. We all have it. We all have it.
So true. And to add more to this voice, sometimes the voice can also feel like a very critical parent or peer or bully or teacher that was harsh and judgmental. And it's not even our voice. It's not even our true self. It's not our higher self communicating to us. It's the voice that we picked up that we thought we had to do those things. And that's how it motivated us to do those things. So, how can we detach from that, create separation? And that's really all the work that we do in the deep imaginings.
It's so powerful to realize that voice actually doesn't belong to you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, Jessica, I could go off about this forever. I could talk to you for hours. This was dangerous. But for the sake of time, we're going to wrap up with some rapid fire questions. First one, what's a small mindset shift that totally changed the game for you?
I mean, just because it's so recent, having peace in the morning. I would say really understanding the power of being in my own energy before plugging into anyone else's. It sounds so simple and everyone says like, "Oh, have a morning routine," but even if it's 5 minutes, choosing for yourself to be in your own and I'm worth being in my own energy, I'm telling you, if you don't already do it, try it out. It does wonders. Confidence, magnetism, all the things.
Amen. I couldn't agree with that more. What is the most surprising thing that either you've manifested or that you've seen people manifest?
Oh gosh. I think the most surprising is how specific it gets sometimes for some people, where they might have like a general. Someone told me today actually, they were thinking of the brand Road and they're like, "Oh, that's a really cool brand. I wish I could like partner with them or do something." And literally seconds later, they got a LinkedIn email saying like, "Hey, I saw you do so and so. Have you ever considered writing for this?" And they emailed them seconds later. So the timing and the synchronicity of the manifestations that come through always, I'm like, how is that possible?
That is so wild. I find that with myself where it'll be like the most specific thing. And then I'm like, why am I manifesting all this stuff that I'm not even meaning to manifest and not what I'm actually trying to? It's
Because
all
you
the
have
limiting
high self-worth
beliefs.
in those areas already.
Exactly. That is, I know. That's why I'm like, work has to be done here. But that's crazy. That is so wild. The specifics are like what will blow your mind for sure. A journaling prompt or a question that immediately makes you magnetic.
Mm. What would the opposite be? So basically, whenever you have that test, that trigger, that dynamic where you feel like you're in that loop or settling or playing small in any way, how do I respond to this in the opposite way? And if you follow through with that action, massive magnetism.
Whoa, that's a huge tip. Best advice you've ever received.
The one that's popping in my head right now is truly like it's all love. And I know that's like such a generic cliche, but I think the older I get and just like the more I see it on so many different levels, that really the most powerful energy, emotion connector is love. And I think the more we can remember that still exists, that we can choose to tap into it, even in the hard moments, that we can choose to find it and not just romantic love, but friendship, love for each other, love for the planet, love for ourselves. It is so incredibly healing and powerful.
It is the most powerful emotion we get access to as human beings. I totally agree. That's such great advice. Last question, Jessica, a book, podcast, or movie that's changed your life?
There's a podcast actually I just listened to. This is a very recent transformation, but I think it's with Donald Hoffman on Diary of a CEO. And he talks about consciousness and the fact that we all may be avatars of our consciousness. I don't know. It just like blew my mind. And it's like a new science. So we'll see what happens and shakes out. But even just opening your mind to the fact that like what we think is concrete and real is not necessarily concrete and real.
Oh my God, that sounds fascinating. Okay, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
go listen to that.
Yeah.
That's like a bit of a mind fuck for sure.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna be like, "I need an existential conversation after this."
Like nothing is real, everything is fake. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. But sometimes that's a good little existential crisis can do wonders. So sometimes we
Mhm.
need it.
Yeah.
Jessica, where can everybody find you? How to be magnetic? Give us all the details.
You can follow To Be Magnetic at To Be Magnetic on Instagram, slowly a little bit on TikTok, expanded podcasts. We have video on Spotify and YouTube. My Instagram is Jessica Ashley Gill. I have a little broadcast channel where I share little manifestation energetics with people. So if you want some like insider tips, check that out. I'm on stories more than I'm on grid. I will say that, but that's where you can find it.
I
Find
am
me.
with you. Stories are a lot easier than grid. Jessica, thank you so much. These tips were phenomenal. I know that if people listen to this one and apply it to their life, it truly will change your outcome and your reality. So, thank you for sharing all of that with us today.
Of course. Thank you. Amazing questions. Great host. This is such a good experience. So I so appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I sure did.
please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really makes a huge difference for our show so we can keep growing and bringing the content that you love. If you want more info, you can find us at the Everygirl Podcast on Instagram or theeverygirlpodcast.com. Talk to you next week.